Let's talk about the origin of technical words and terminology. These words are easy to create. Humans have always made up words to describe things. And since we invent things, we create new words all the time. And every time there's something new that's created with technology, we have to create a new word for us to describe what it is and how it works. So one of the words that we deal with when we're talking about technology is hardware. And hardware means anything you can physically get your hands on. That could be a computer, it could be a smartphone, it could be a tablet, it could be a printer, but it's the physical object itself. So if you can get your hands on it, it's considered hardware. And when we work with hardware, we're working with a physical object. Cables, microphones, other things, they're all hardware as well. But hardware by itself is not always that intelligent. Let's talk about a particular kind of hardware, a computer that we can look at. So a computer is a machine that follows instructions. Okay, it includes some kind of a calculator, also known as a central processing unit, okay, or CPU. And that's the brains of the computer. This is a picture of an Intel CPU. It's usually what's called a computer chip, and it has the ability to calculate and perform transactions that actually help us use a computer and do work for us. A computer also has to store its information somewhere. It might store it in memory, and sometimes that memory is called RAM, okay? Or it might store it on a storage drive, which is sometimes called a disk or a drive, okay? And these three components make up a lot of what makes a computer work. CPU does the calculating. The RAM is where information is stored when the computer is calculating and working with it. And then the storage location is where information is kept for long-term storage and also for when the computer is turned off. Now, the hardware itself doesn't really know how to do much of anything. It's the software that gives it instructions. Now, there's some other things that go with computers as well, things like a screen, a keyboard, a mouse or a trackpad, a microphone, speakers, printers. These are ways for people to communicate with computers, and they're helpful for people to use so that we can enter information, we can see things, we can hear things, we can talk and participate and do things as well. So those are tools that make it easy for us to utilize a computer. Software is a written set of instructions for a computer. And without the software, the computer really wouldn't know what to do. Software is what gives us the ability to use this hardware to do things like email or Zoom meetings or printing things out or creating documents or editing photographs or browsing the web. And there's generally two types of software. Okay, one type of software is usually called an operating system, and another type of software is called an application, or apps for short. Companies like Google and Apple and Microsoft make operating systems. They also make software. Google makes a popular operating system called Android. Apple makes the Mac operating system and the operating system for iPhones. And Microsoft makes the popular Windows operating system. Operating systems are a valuable part of your computer because here's what happens. You have a piece of hardware. And I'm going to pretend this is the bottom layer. Okay. And then you have applications that need to use the hardware to do work, things like email, your web browser, word processing, etc. In between the applications and the hardware is where the operating system sits. And it's always in memory when your computer is turned on, but the application can talk to the operating system, and the operating system can talk to the hardware, so that somebody who is creating an application doesn't have to worry about what brand of hardware you have, what model number you have, what generation of chip you're using. As long as they make the application work with the operating system will make sure that it works with the hardware. So the operating system essentially gives your hardware a pulse. It gives it the ability, it brings it to life. But the applications are really why we buy and use technology, because we want to write and read emails. We want to browse the web. We want to join Zoom meetings. We want to watch a video. We want to do all of those types of things. And that's what applications do. And people that create software are often called programmers. Let me write an O there, okay, a G-A-M-M-E-R-S, okay? They're programmers and they write code for computers applications. And that's what we really rely on when we're using our computers. It's the software that makes them something we would want to own. If it were just the hardware, it really wouldn't serve any purpose whatsoever. It's like having a car, but you have no road to drive it on and no gasoline. If you didn't have a road to drive it on, a car would be a pretty difficult, type of technology to use. But because we have roads that take us from place to place, we can use a car and we can make it functional. So applications make our hardware really functional. Anybody have any questions about software for operating systems or applications? Because we do a lot of classes on understanding your operating system and understanding your applications that I'd recommend you look at if you want to learn more about them. Okay, here's a piece of software. There's a lot of terminology that you may not recognize in a piece of software because it's something that is used for different types of purposes and different ways of dealing with things. And the purpose of software is to really just work with things to make it possible for a piece of hardware. So words like function or void or const or new, they mean something in the language of software, but we as people may not understand them because we're not programmers. But programmers understand what these tools do, and the software tells the hardware what it wants to do. It makes it possible for it to do all types of things that we might be interested in.